Catholic News Roundup is brought to you in part by PewSitter.com, your online Catholic newspaper for the third millennium, CatholicMediaCoalition.org, in line with the Church, online with the world.
And TheAmericanCatholic.com, politics and culture from a Catholic perspective.
Hello and welcome to today's edition of Catholic News Roundup. I'm Matthew McAuliffe. Translation number 3. Catholics in the United States experienced a new translation of the Mass this past Sunday, joining other English-speaking Catholics around the world who have had the revised text for some time now. Some highlights of the changes include responding with the words, "and with your spirit," instead of, "and also with you." Another example in the recitation of the Creed. One will no longer say, "we believe," but instead, "I believe." And in the words of consecration, the priest now says, quote, "for you and for many," instead of "for all." Most of the changes to the new missal can be found in the prayers used by the priest, bringing the meaning and spirit closer to the original Latin text formulated by Pope Paul VI and the Council Fathers, intended to be more closely resemble Protestant rites. It is interesting to note that the Second Vatican Council says that the Mass celebrated in Latin is to be the norm, including the use of Gregorian chant, while celebration of the Mass in the vernacular is to be the exception. Trouble at mill. Planned Parenthood, the abortion mill giant, is feeling the pinch in their pocketbooks and public opinion. According to LifeSite News, Planned Parenthood President Cecile Richards says that 2011 has been, quote, "the most difficult year in our history," end quote. The past year saw Congress successfully pass a bill to defund Planned Parenthood, though the bill never got through the Democratic-controlled Senate. In the aftermath of the failed bill, defunding efforts moved forward in 9 states, totaling some $61 million, causing some abortion mills to close in those states. Meanwhile, Congress opened an investigation into allegations that Planned Parenthood was engaged in the misuse of federal funds and covering up for the sexual abuse of minors. Today, public opinion continues to fall for the abortion provider with the revealing comments of former employees such as Catherine Anthony Adair, who said in a recent Washington Examiner article, quote, "I spent my days urging women to terminate their pregnancies. My superiors constantly reminded me of our abortion-centered business model. Abortions first, everything else came second." Too little, too late. Archbishop Timothy Dolan says the bishops of New York were misled, while homosexual activists are labeling the bishop's response to the legalization of same-sex marriage in New York as, quote, "mute and moderate." Terrence Weldon, same-sex activist and blogger for the site Queering the Church, says, quote, "the really interesting thing about the Catholic bishops and New York gay marriage is not how vigorously they fought against it, but how lukewarm this opposition was overall, and how calm they have been in response," end quote. According to LifeSite News, Archbishop Timothy Dolan of New York City says in an interview with EWTN that he and the other 21 bishops in the state took the word of what they thought were, quote, "political allies," who reassured them that the bill had no legs, taking into account that other past attempts to legalize same-sex marriage had failed. In retrospect, he says he and the other bishops of the state are now wondering if they weren't being deceived. Stay with us. We'll be back in just a few seconds.
Catholic News Roundup is brought to you in part by NewOxfordReview.org, the voice of Catholic Orthodoxy, in print and on the web, and RenewAmerica.com, expanding the influence of America's grassroots in the cause of freedom.
Newt Nett's endorsement. The Gingrich campaign has reeled in a coveted endorsement from a very influential newspaper. The New Hampshire Union Leader says of him, quote, "a lot of candidates say they're going to improve Washington. Newt Gingrich has actually done that, and in this race he offers the best shot of doing it again," end quote. TheBlaze.com reports the newspaper has a reputation for influencing voters of New Hampshire, so much so that Mitt Romney had dinner with the publisher earlier this year to lobby for its support. This particular endorsement could be a major setback for Romney, who, according to a recent poll, has support from 42% of voters in the state compared to Gingrich's second-place status of 15%. crystal clear controversy. One news source is pointing out that the Vatican may not be very pleased with the recent extravagant purchase of the Crystal Cathedral in the California Diocese of Orange. The California Catholic Daily says the Vatican Insider, a news service comprised of experienced journalists well connected inside the Vatican, uses a picture of the building as the centerpiece for its latest article about the new commission being created to cut down on architecture and art that leads to liturgical abuse in the church. The Insider says, quote, "These buildings, composed of cement cubes, glass boxes, crazy shapes, and confused spaces, remind people of anything but the mystery and sacredness of a church. Tabernacles are semi-hidden, leading faithful on a real treasure hunt, and sacred images are almost inexistent," end quote. The commission is supposed to be established by the Congregation of Divine Worship in Rome over the coming weeks. You can read more about the commission and the Crystal Cathedral on our resource page by clicking on the link right outside the screen. I'm Matthew McAuliffe. Thanks for tuning in today. Be sure and tune in tomorrow for your daily dose of Catholic News Roundup right here on RealCatholicTV.com. And be sure to check out The Vortex today, where Michael has a suggestion for you on where the Bible came from. Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to tell all your friends about us. And as always, God bless you.